Hi there, boys and girls. Welcome to Kids Church this week. My name is Nikhil, and today we're going to be starting a new series. We're going to be starting to look at some of the heroes of the Bible. And each week we're going to be looking at a new hero that shows how awesome God is and shows what it means to be a hero of the Bible. This week we're going to be looking at Moses. Now, some of you boys and girls might know about Moses already. We find his story in the book of Exodus in the Old Testament. And some of you guys might be familiar with some of the other things that Moses did in his life. You guys might know about the burning bush where he met God. You guys might know about Pharaoh as well. Wicked Pharaoh, who was the king of Egypt, and he held all of the Israelites, all of God's people as slaves, which wasn't very nice at all. And you might also know about the 10 plagues that came against Pharaoh because of all of his wicked things that he did against God's people. Well, our story today comes straight after that, where finally, after Moses went to Pharaoh and asked him to let all the Israelites go, Pharaoh finally let all of God's people go so they could go and worship God. So this story picks up just as the Israelites get all their things together, they get all their gold and their food, and they're ready to go on this big, big journey. And Moses told them that God would always be with the Israelites. And that was true, because when the Israelites started walking out of the camp, what they realized is, as soon as they left Egypt, God started leading them. He started leading them by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. So the Israelites would always know which way to go. Can you imagine how exciting that would be? You're finally free from slavery and you can finally be with God. And so the Israelites kept walking and walking away from Egypt when suddenly they came to a deep, deep sea. The Bible calls it the Sea of Reeds. And suddenly, all of that excitement and joy that the Israelites were feeling started turning into nervousness. And then they started hearing something. They started hearing horses and the sound of swords and armor chinking together. And they realized that Pharaoh had sent his armies after the Israelites. I think Pharaoh must have realized that all of his workers had gone running away. And so he wanted to get all the Israelites back into slavery. And they started getting very, very scared. And so they started shouting to Moses, who was their leader. And they started saying, "Moses, why are we out here in the desert? We're going to die next to the Reed Sea." And they started saying, "Moses, Moses, Moses, when the Egyptians catch up to us, we're going to be ground into the sea like pepper. Our bones are going to be all over the sea, and we're going to be no more. Moses, why did you take us all the way out to Egypt? Why couldn't we have stayed there? Because if we had stayed in Egypt, at least they've got yummy food there." And then some of the other Israelites were saying, "Moses, I can't believe you brought us all the way out to the desert to die. Now, our blood will be all over the water and it won't be very good." And they started getting very angry and annoyed at Moses. And then some other people came to Moses and said, "Moses, I can't believe you brought us out here to die. We'll be like the dust and we'll be all dead." Now Moses, remember, here's our story today. Moses asked God, "God, what should we do now? We're stuck at the Sea of Reeds." And so God told Moses to grab his staff and put his hands over the water. And when Moses did that, when he put his hand over the water, what he found was the sea started to part. And the sea split into so that the Israelites could walk straight through the middle. And when they got to the other side, the waters crashed back together and the Egyptians could no longer catch them. So boys and girls, today's story was all about how Moses was the hero, wasn't he? Moses put his hand out over the water and Moses parted the Red Sea. No, not really. In fact, I've got my Bible here and we'll see who the real hero of this story is. I'm going to read out of the book of Exodus, which is where we hear about all these stories about Moses. Oh, it's very windy today. And so I'm going to read out of the book of Exodus. I'm going to find out who the real hero of the story is. It says there, "So the Lord saved Israel that day from the hands of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord had used against the Egyptians." So even though Moses was the one with the staff and Moses was the one waving his hands over the water, we know that God is the true hero of this story. So boys and girls, why don't you tune in next week? We're going to look at another hero of the Bible. See you next week.